Hey there YouTube, I'm Yukitsu, this is the Yukitsu Times, welcome to my channel, welcome to Battlefleet Gothic. So we're showing you a little bit more of ranked, and I'm going to go through the Chaos Fleet now. Now you can in the end get a few points off on one of these battleships, and it's a good idea potentially to have it as a backup, but we're going to be focusing again on the battle cruiser and below tiers. So we're going to go ahead and get the Styxes here. They are excellent carriers with good capacity there, so they can be used either to screen against the Tau bullshit that's pretty prevalent right now, or you can be using them, of course, to more offensively attack other people's sort of equivalent sort of things out there. Now, for this tier of things, I still think that Slaughter is the best of the ships. Obviously, if we want to go carrier, we want to actually stick with the light cruisers and just take nothing but regular Hellbringer Mark 1 spam, but they're 116 points, which is no longer particularly economical for a 2-ordnance-based ship with no gun. It's really not brilliant, and the fact that they're fast is what sort of makes them still viable. Speed of 225 is really, really fast, actually, for a carrier-type ship, so that could still potentially work, but it would be sort of annoying, especially since your opponent could be like, we're up against Chaos, expect kiting, pick objectives where they're not allowed to kite. So we're probably going to skip that for now and stick with the Slaughter. Now, again, the advantage of the Slaughter by contrast to these other ships is that, like, if we look at this, it's got this nice split profile here on the twin link batteries. The user data is corrupted or something in the beta for some reason. Macro weapon data not showing up there, but it's also got, of course, the macro turret, really high damage on that, 1 damage per second per, or sorry, 3 damage per second for the turret itself there, and then, of course, the missile pod turret, another 3 damage per second, so 6 damage omnidirectional, and then, like, the twin link battery, I'm pretty sure the macro weapon data ended up being something like 2 damage per second per battery, which is pretty okay, but also the lance data, as you'll notice here, is 6 damage per second, which is really, really high. So this is a pretty high damage per second output. That's 12 damage per second to a flank. By contrast, the Carnage over here, which is a macro battery ship, you know, the macro battery's pretty comparable, in all honesty. 8 attacks with a slightly less than half damage per second, so it's almost 4, but not, or it's a little bit over 4. It's 8 by 3 is 24, and then 8 by 5 is 40, so it's like 24 over 50, or 24 over 40, which is, you know, whatever the hell it is. I don't want to do math. It's some value per second. I don't know. Good range, though, on that, and that's got the heavy missile pod turret and the heavy macro pod turret. The Murder over here is the other option. It's macro battery, but also has a heavy prow lance. The heavy prow lance, unfortunately, is only 2 damage per second, and it loses both turrets in the process, the heavy missile pod turret and the heavy macro turret. So the Murder is actually a really crappy ship. Like that heavy prow lance is just not worth it. Devastation down here is your carrier option, so there is no true lance carrier ship other than Slaughter, and Slaughter is probably the best all around. Now, it's still a little bit strange and kind of buggy in the sense, but you can still go into upgrades here, and we can still upgrade this with the turbo weaponry. All macro weapons on the ship are increased by 3,000 units. Outfit that. Check our stats here. You'll notice that our twin link battery now has 9,000 range on the lance data as well as the macro weapon data. So this increases that range by quite a nice amount and makes them a very decent 9,000 range ship at a very good speed. So this is still a pretty decent ship for that purpose. I like to take emission dissipators on these guys. Improved auger arrays. Improved camo is a pretty good option, but you don't necessarily need it depending on what your strategy is going to be. We'll show you what our strategy is, so we don't particularly need this on our ships. We do, however, want to take improved shields and that. So this is our 5 upgrades. It's going to be a pretty decent ship in terms of just raw power there. I'm going to actually redo this just because I have like OCD here. So that this is in order. There we go. OCD sated. Alright, so let's go ahead and just clone that ship there. It also helps so that I can more easily look at what I'm doing and repeat the process for my other ships there, because I don't want to think. Alright. So what's this ship good for? Well, this ship is quite difficult to properly detect without being fired at in return. It's got really long range. It's pretty decent in a punch-up fight. You'll notice it's got 300 shields. Those shields recharge faster than normal. 800 hit points is nothing to really scoff at. Very, very good damage per second from the broadsides there in terms of that. Like, the lances alone are 12 damage per second, which is really, really high for a lance-type weapon. And then add to the 6 damage per second from the turrets. All of that combined makes this quite strong. The other upgrade that I potentially could want is the armor-piercing ammunition. Actually, it got nerfed, so I don't like these as much. But it does help the turrets, which both are macro-type weapons. We'll see how things work, and I might adjust that later, but for now this is perfectly fine. We're going to take auger probes and other support-type weapons on these guys. Now, taking Supercharged Void Shield can be good, but we want each of these to also have a maneuverability, ability in case we're up against Eldar or something. Enhanced Induction Cells are pretty good against them. So we're going to go ahead and take those. We're going to take an auger probe this time. Enhanced Induction Cells again. The current meta is very much just launch these auger probes out. I do still think that the recon beacon is usually stronger, so I do take two of them for the one. And this is 3 of our ships set up there. Just going to go with a very, very basic crew setup here, just nothing too tricky. Now, what we're going to try with this particular fleet is a Slaanesh themed fleet. It's one of the stacking ones. It's one of the stacking favors. It's not too expensive. It's quite effective on cheaper ships. So let's look at what the abilities do again. Slaanesh's Promise, we can reduce the enemy's ability to use special orders and stuff like that, which can be very, very useful. They lose their active special order, and they can't use skills for 30 seconds. This is very, very good at locking in a ship, because it stops them from using all ahead full as well. The other one is the Siren of Slaanesh. Every enemy ship within 7,500 units has its insubordination chances raised by 10% if it's reaches 30% hull integrity. Basically, what this ultimately results in is for every Slaanesh ship that's within 7,500 units of you, your mutiny chance increases by a radically large amount, especially if all 3 of them are there. So this makes it so that we can cause lots of mutiny criticals. So let's go ahead and do this up here. And this is basically like a morale break sort of composition here. So we've got 3 ships. If a ship gets below 30% and they're near all 3 of my Slaanesh ships, it has a 120% break chance. Obviously, there's certain ships that are immune to that, and there are certain ways to increase your leadership. And some ships just don't break as easily as others, so there's that as well. Now, this ship, the Styx, is a dedicated carrier, so it's going to be a little bit different there. We definitely need this for an upgrade. We definitely want to be very, very camo focused, though. We're going to go ahead and, well, let's go ahead and do this in order as well, I guess. It doesn't matter as much because there's not as many skills to upgrade, but what's our upgrade path going to be here? Well, we get 5 upgrades. We're going to go ahead and take this one. We're going to go ahead and take that. Going to go ahead and take this. And for weaponry, I forget what this actually has for weapons. Let's see here. It's got the super heavy macro turret, so it's got the 3 damage per second on the macro turret. It's got the lance turret at a 1 damage per second per, so 2 damage per second from those. And it's got the super heavy missile pod turret for another 6 damage per second. So its damage per second is basically like the top mounted weapons of one of the slaughters, so pretty poor. We could go for something that's a little bit more defensive, like belt armor, so let's go ahead and take that. Belt armor is actually super, super good. So that is all of that, and let's see if we can go ahead and clone this effectively. And, oops. Just being a little bit crazy, don't mind me. Anyway, for these guys, Warp Talons are very important, and Slaves are very important. We don't need the Cultists much. So we're going to go ahead and put it into the Possessed Gunners, even though I was just saying the guns aren't that great on this ship. For this type of ship, I don't need to chase, which is what Enhanced Induction Cells are for. So we're not going to bother with those. We're going to go ahead and take the Micro Warp Jump instead. We're going to take that as support there, and we're going to take a Snare. And we're going to probably actually clone the skills on this guy here. And yeah, we'll do a complete clone. Like, the reason that I don't like these is that they pass over ships, they stealth, and then my ships get recalled, my fighter jets. So this is going to be our Styx configuration there. And you'll notice we've got some renown left. Part of that's going to go into our favors here, though. For these guys, we're going to go with the Mark of Tzeentch. These guys get really interesting abilities. That makes them quite strong. Now, next up, we've got 950 points left. We're going to go ahead and spam these into our despoiler here. We're going to make them have upgraded Warp Talons, Possessed Gunners, of course, as well, and then the Slaves, same sort of setup as the Styx. This is basically like a heavily upgraded Styx. Now, I can't afford that many of the upgrades for this thing, but we're just going to take points in some key ones here. Ultimately, the automated refueling systems for this sort of vessel is absolutely key there. But next up, we're probably just going to go ahead and take something like these things. It's not really possible for us. Actually, I think that this is going to be a little bit more important for this. So we'll take that, and then we'll take this here. So this is all we can do on this ship. It's not very upgraded, it's not very good, but it does provide something for us to fall back on in the event that we need an extra ship, because one of ours is damaged or we've just got a weird point value. And this thing is still pretty powerful even without upgrades, so it's not like it's a complete waste. But if we look here, 178 points plus 178 points, we're looking at like you know, some value of points that is completely eluding me right now. But I think we can mix these guys with all three of our slaughters. I'd have to get out a calculator, honestly. I think it's 356 that these two are worth put together. And these things are just under 350, so that would be just under 700 points for all these put together. Then we can go ahead and take our light ships and just have them exist. I could actually upgrade the crew, but I'm not going to bother, because if we get down to these guys, we're pretty screwed anyway. Alright. Actually, you know what, let's do it. Let's just free in this really quick, so. You can also afford, like, one upgrade on one of these, I guess, so let's go ahead and do that, I guess. Or can we afford an upgrade? Yeah, we can afford an upgrade instead, so, blah, blah, blah. I don't know. This. There. Alright. There we go. And for these guys, the warp talons are more important. There could actually be situations where the carriers are actually still viable, so, I mean, it's not too bad to have these guys exist. Alright, so let's go ahead and hit search. So, what's this fleet good at? Oh, well, getting into a match right away, apparently. But primarily what this fleet's really good for is it allows me to sort of shroud my ships constantly in stealth, so as the auger probes are washing over my ships there, my ships will automatically revert so that they're no longer visible once that passes over me. So any ordnance that's heading towards me is going to get cancelled really quickly. Any homing ordnance, that is, like aircraft, homing torpedoes, stuff like that, is not going to work against me very effectively. Alright, so my opponent does get to choose his mission. He's named Weavington, so we can assume that this is actually a Tau player. He's playing Defender, probably going to be something bullshit like Space Station Assault or something like that. No, he's the attacker, actually, in a cruiser clash. Okay. Right, so let's go ahead and set ourselves up here. Let's see if we can actually... Oh, no, I miscalculated, but no, this is pretty close to what I was wanting. So it was 2, actually, that I could take. I'm really bad at math, so... I love that sort of, like, spazzing out thing that just says super heavy missile pod turret because it's too big to fit there. Let's just go ahead and take a light scouting ship here, like an idolator. It's got no upgrades, but it's just there for scouting. Alright, so we only got the 20% increase, but that's still enough because it changes it from, like, if they're below 30%, I think that changes it to 70% chance that they'll run away, which is good enough. Or no, it's, yeah, 70%. Alright, let's go ahead and get these guys in the middle, and the slaughters on the flanks. And then we'll just have an idolator sort of loitering around over here for whatever the hell reason. Alright, so these guys, we're going to have the bombers be default. If they ever get in range of something like a boarding action, then that's perfectly fine. This, I don't know if I want to have it on automatic. It looks like he's got quite a few of the escorts, so we're not going to have that automatic. Alright, that's all okay, that's fine. We'll have this guy different just because I feel like it. We'll set the idolator to forward firing just because that light prow lance I believe is a forward firing weapon. It is, alright. Alright, and as soon as this starts up, we'll deploy our Chaos Fighter squadrons.
For the dark gods!
Alright. And we can basically have this permanently up just by rotating between the two of them.
For the ruinous powers!
Alright, so they're over here. And 2 of the ships are missing, either they're in the gas clouds or something like that. But you can see that like our entire fleet is in this Slanesh cloud, or Tzeentch cloud rather. I always get those two mixed up for some reason. I actually played a little Slanesh actually in the tabletop. The Dark Elf Slanesh variant list. Pretty interesting play, actually. A lot of fun. Oh, there's a torpedo. We're going to try and get around it.
For now.
So I don't see a lot of... I don't see any ordnance clouds right now. Just a little bit weird. But we'll see how things go.
Your orders. Engines
One of the
hot.
nice things about this fleet is I can boost pretty much anything if I need to, and it won't reveal, so
For chaos
that's
comes.
pretty strong. Oh, there's their recon beacon. Well, that doesn't matter a whole lot. Like I just said, like, what's going to happen is a bunch of ordnance is going to launch, and it launched against my idolator. Then my idolator slips out of the line of sight there,
Setting course.
and yeah, we're fine.
Ready eternally.
Do I have let's launch our own.
Come
Just
on,
as a
man.
counter launch there.
Moving to those coordinates.
Alright, so
For the ruinous powers.
I think this will slip past us. Or not,
Your
okay.
orders.
Or we will
Setting
ride
course.
straight into it. One of the two, you know. Let's just pop that there. Oh, those are all mini
For the
lame
dark
ships.
gods. We've sighted an enemy ship.
I think that still canceled my fighters. Although I don't actually know if I launched any yet.
Engines
Alright, there's
hot.
demiurge ships to my flank here.
We've sighted an enemy ship. We're unstoppable.
Alright, so we just want to wait till there's special orders from that demiurge ship.
Our troops rampage through the enemy ship.
Alright, let's get these ships over here.
Brace. Tear them apart.
Oh, there's the scary ship.
Ready eternally. Brace.
Alright, let's get these Styxes over here.
Prepare my ship or else. Tremble.
Let's get our Slanesh ship close in. Let's get this guy off special orders.
Just show us something to kill. Bloodbath. For the dark gods.
Alright, there we go. There goes that demiurge ship.
Follow your command. For now. Ready eternally.
Where is this guy? Oh,
Tremble, for chaos comes. Command me.
I need to actually get some fighters out. Let's go ahead and auto those.
For the dark gods.
Just got grav waved away from this guy, which is fine.
Setting course. Ready eternally.
Alright.
For the ruinous power.
Lots of damage on these guys here.
We're unstoppable.
Ouch.
Command me. Moving to those coordinates. Engines hot. Just show us something to kill.
Oh, damn.
We'll follow
Alright,
your
we got a
command.
replacement for that ship though, so it's fine.
Start the ritual.
Nope. Had to execute our captain, but
Brace.
look how much damage this guy's taking from the collective lance
For the
hits here.
ruinous powers.
Let's try and block that guy there.
Forward to the slaughter.
Gonna actually cancel this. I don't want him charging like that.
Unstoppable.
Alright. And we're nicely braced there, so that's fine.
Tremble, for chaos comes.
Alright, so we've beaten the OP as hell Tau. They've just got a couple of light ships left, and they're not going to be able to use their good ships in the next match, so this is going really well for us.
Command me.
We are missing just one of our Slanesh ships, I believe.
Boarding attack.
Nope, one of our carriers, actually, so that's not good, but we could bring our battleship if we need to. Bonk. Alright, so that was polite of him. Okay, so we lost one ship, and we wiped out every single Tau ship they took. He took a Demiurge Bastion, a Cessia, and his Custodian. So without the Custodian, he's not got battleships for the next set of matches, which is really, really strong for me. Not having to fight the Custodian, because that was basically what happened to me, is I got burst damaged down by the Custodian's bomber run. So I think that we've got a pretty good chance here. Let's see what my opponent does. He might capitulate here because he doesn't have a huge chance at this point in time, especially because I get to choose the match next. So we'll see if he can even do anything at this point. I don't feel like I was getting cheesed out by Tau quite as badly as sometimes I did. I think he only had 1 Earthcast vessel, so... Well, actually, no, he couldn't have more than 2, so maybe he did have 2, but the Demiurge Bastion can't do Earthcast. He can only go Watercast. Which makes sense, like Watercast is the diplomats and stuff like that. Yeah, I think we're looking at another situation where my opponent was incapable of providing an enemy for me. Or we're going to get stuck in screens. Like, this is still buggy in beta. Although the ranked system shouldn't actually be. It's just... Oh, let's see what's happening here. Round 2 apparently still happening. I think he's got like a certain amount of time to surrender or something like that's what's happening. But yeah, like we've still got our battleship. It's not really ideal, but we could also just take like 1 Styx and 3 Slaughters and just really focus on hammering down all of his... What we could actually do is just like take out an unlimited number of those escorts. I do believe they count for the fleeing mechanic, and each one we take out increases his chance of fleeing by 6%, so if we just take out like 5 of them... Yeah, my enemy abandoned the match, so that does get considered a victory. So buggy in that sort of sense on the ladder there. But yeah, this is just a really strong setup for Chaos right now. The reason that I don't take Mark of Nurgle, which I think is also quite strong under normal circumstances, is that it's so outclassed by the Swarm Torpedoes that if I'm trying to beat, say, a Tau player using that, it's not really going to work, honestly. It's going to just very, very slowly erode them away. And people don't really take the massive swarms of escorts anymore unless they're the Tau. The reason that I don't necessarily need to worry about that is that Slaughters are really good at killing escorts, and the Styx is also really, really good at killing a lot of escorts. So both these sort of ships work really well for that purpose there. So anyway, that's a look at Chaos in Ranked. This is just one strategy. There are, of course, other strategies that you can try out and take and experiment on your own. Of course, it's very, very easy to set up your army however you want if you've got a strategy in mind. But this covers all of your bases. It's good against Eldar. It can work against Orcs very, very effectively because Mark of Slanesh are very devastating against Orcs, potentially. You've got things like a lot of bombers if you need to, fighter screens covering for you against Tau. You can see that that was very effective against the typical Custodian random ship Cessia combination, which is very, very common for them. Works well against Space Marines. It's got the Ordnance, it's got the Lances. It works well against the Empire. Actually, I would say that the Empire has the best chance against this composition. Like, they can't necessarily stop me from just dumping fighters and running constantly, but honestly, this fleet doesn't have a huge amount of that. And then the Slaughters do get kind of outgunned by Dominators and stuff like that. So still, this is a pretty fun list. It's interesting to use. It's nice that it counters the current meta to a certain extent. Very much the current thing to do is you launch out a bunch of auger probes, you launch out a ton of unlimited range homing ordnance, like those homing torpedoes, or the boarding torpedoes for the Space Marines, or you sit across the opposite end of the map while chucking torpedoes down and hoping that you deal damage just randomly. This is pretty okay against that sort of thing just because it's got the fighter screens, decently tough ships and stuff like that, which are pretty good at tanking through torpedoes. Very, very slim profile, very good for slipping through torpedoes. And it's got that sort of mix of both that just instant burst of getting rid of a whole bunch of enemy ships immediately thanks to the Mark of Slanesh, as well as that sort of sneaky element that Chaos is known for. But you don't have to run with this fleet. It's pretty good in the close-up punch. Anyway, I hope you found this video enjoyable, and of course, as always, I hope to see you all next time.